All right, so we're going to look at problem 4 from the homework 4.5. We have a question about this. And we have the following question. Suppose the true proportion of voters in the county who support a school levy is 0.41. So that's proportion P. Consider the sampling distribution for the proportion of supporters with sample size n equals 217. What is the mean and what is the standard error of this distribution? So keep in mind the distribution that they're talking about right here. They're asking about what is the sampling distribution, as mentioned in the problem. Consider the sampling distribution for the proportion. Of supporters with sample size n equals 217. So we want to find the mean and the standard error. We want to find the mean and standard error of a sampling distribution for the proportion. So I have these two equations that are written here. You may not know exactly where that came from, but you'll notice that this is a section 4.5 problem, or homework 4.5, so that's section 4.5. And in the textbook, as you can see right here, 4.5, at the very beginning, they talk about the mean and standard deviation of p hat. And keep in mind that p hat is the sample proportion. You may be familiar with p hat being sample proportion. So this is saying this is the mean and standard deviation of the sample proportion. That's exactly what the question is asking for. Let's go back to that really quickly. The sampling distribution, so the sampling distribution for the proportion. So that means the sample proportion, the distribution of the sample proportion. And we're going to find the mean standard error, or in other words, standard deviation. So remember, standard error is the standard deviation of a sampling distribution. You may remember that possibly from Math 243. So this is what we're looking for. In your problem, or in your attempt, you just found the mean of the binomial and the standard deviation of the binomial. So you use the NP, so the numerator of both these equations. That's not what the question's asking for. So they're not asking for the mean and standard deviation of a binomial distribution. That's not what's being asked there. That's fine. So they're actually asking for this entire thing. So the mean of p hat, meaning the mean of the distribution of p hat, which is the sampling distribution of a proportion, is p. And then the standard deviation of p hat is the square root of p times 1 minus p over n. So those are the two equations we're using. And for this problem, now some students may have different numbers here. They may not have a 0.41 and n equals 217. So in this case, it says here the true proportion, meaning p in this case is 0.41. And n, as mentioned, is 217. So we're going to use those two different values to find the mean of p hat, which is just p, 0.41. And then I'll just make a blank. There's no blank there. And then we want to find the standard deviation, or of p hat, the standard deviation of a sampling distribution. Is also known as standard error. This also applies to the standard deviation of a sample mean. There's a sample proportion and sample mean, which that would look like that, sigma sub x bar. That is also known as standard error. Both these are called standard errors because they're both standard deviations of a sampling distribution. So in this case, we have the square root of p times 1 minus p times n, 217. I'm going to pull up my TI-83 calculator really quickly so I can plug this in. All right, so we have a square root of 0.41. Then we want open parentheses, 1 minus 0.41, close parentheses. So I just closed that parenthesis right there. And then I want to divide by 217. And now I'm going to close the parenthesis for the square root. And there we go. So we have, I'll just put approximate. I'm not sure what this is supposed to be rounded to. It doesn't say here, but make sure you round to the appropriate decimal place. And I'm going to round to just be say 5 decimals. Maybe 3, 4, I don't know, whatever the problem states. And those are the two solutions for this problem. Nope. 0, 3, 3, 3, 9. All right, let me know if you have any other concerns. Hopefully this makes sense. I'm more than happy to help if you have any other questions.